citizens have been complaining in recent years about all the human feces in the streets, but now the streets are full of something else. They call it San Francisco snow. It's glass, piles and piles of shattered glass everywhere from car windows being smashed. It's so routine to have this happen to any parked car that people purposefully leave the windows down and the glove compartment open so thieves can see there's nothing of value. Or they leave a note on the car politely assuring the thief that there's nothing worth stealing and please don't break the windows. Dear Mr. Criminal, I hope this note finds you well. Please don't break my windows. Thanks, you're the best. P.S. There's a Walgreens around the corner if you want to hit that.
Good morning. It's Monday, Medal of Honor Monday, November the 27th, and this is The True Conservative. Welcome to all the butchers, bakers, and candlestick makers out there. I'm Ron, your host, and the only true conservative in the United States today. So today, after the Serenity Prayer and the patriotic song of the day, we will have the shorts, strategies of war, easy company, and former President Donald Trump presenting the Congressional Medal of Honor. All that and more when I get back. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I shouldn't change, the courage to change the things I should, and the wisdom to know the difference. Amen. Thank you. And now some shorts.
Landing on the wrong carrier is embarrassing, but what about landing on an enemy's carrier? During the Battle of Coral Sea, when aircraft carriers from the Japanese and U.S. navies faced off for the very first time in history, a group of Japanese pilots took off from their carrier, only to run into a squadron of Grumman F-4F Wildcats who were ready to shoot them down with their .50 caliber machine guns. Startled by the unpleasant surprise, the Japanese pilots scattered and headed back to their ships. But with the sun setting, a handful of Japanese pilots got disoriented. As soon as they found the closest flat top, they entered into a landing pattern, signaling that they were going to touch down. What they didn't realize is this was no Japanese ship. This was the USS Yorktown. The Japanese pilots wised up at the last second and flew off as American gunners opened fire, hitting their own Wildcats in the confusion. Of 27 Japanese planes that took off that day, only 18 made it back to their own carrier.
Israel is not the only nation with F-35 stealth fighters, but it is the only nation that has customized the F-35 to meet its specific operational needs, making it a special version of the aircraft. The Israel Air Force has made significant modifications to the F-35, including changes to the aircraft software, sensors, and weapon systems to better suit its operational requirements. One of the key modifications made by Israel is the integration of its own electronic warfare systems into the F-35. These systems allow the aircraft to detect and jam enemy radar and communication systems, increasing its survivability in contested airspace. Another modification made by Israel is the addition of its own sensors and software to the F-35. Israel has developed its own electro-optical targeting system, which allows the aircraft to detect and track targets at long ranges.
He was on his way to work when suddenly gunfire erupts on the freeway.
And I was like, man, let me record what's going on just in case my job don't believe me.
Then jumping into action.
Come this way! This way! Come here!
Pulling an injured officer to safety.
You're okay, bro. You're okay.
That's what John Lally's Saturday morning looked like.
Since I saw that one cop get shot, and I've been shot before in the same leg, and it made me know what he was going through. And I just seen somebody in help, so I ran over there.
Not thinking twice.
I kind of didn't even know it was shooting still going on. In my head, I just was like, man, I got to go get this guy real quick.
This video showing the shootout that led to the death of a carjacking suspect on the Southwest Freeway, leaving an HPD officer shot in the leg.
It was my calling to be here with you today.
Why these Marines are wearing suits while on duty is not what you think. Unlike Hollywood movies, Marines do not stand in front of American embassies waiting for a suicide bomber. Most of the security outside of an embassy is handled by the local guard force, who are contractors. The Marines are there to guard classified materials that are inside the embassy. Becoming one of the over 2,000 Marine security guards, or MSGs, requires outstanding service records to qualify them for security clearances and graduate from the Marine Embassy Security Group School in Quantico, Virginia, right down the street from the FBI Academy. But all that changed in 2012 after the Benghazi attack. Now the mission of the MSGs is to ensure all personnel, classified information, and government property are protected. The Marine Security Guards, also known as watchstanders, ensure entrances to the embassies are secured 24/7 and are noticeable behind bulletproof glass with their iconic blue and tan uniform. However, these Marines don't always wear Marine uniform. While they're in school, every MSG is issued a suit to ensure every Marine is able to look professional for any situation.
If you're going to drop a nuclear bomb, you better make sure you have time to fly away before the blast vaporizes you. When the Enola Gay dropped the first atomic bomb on Hiroshima, it was flying nearly 6 miles above the city, which allowed them to turn away from the blast. But what if you need to be more accurate? In that case, a pilot would want to fly low to the ground to get a clear shot at the target while avoiding enemy radar. But when you're talking about an atomic weapon, that would be a suicide mission, unless you toss it. In toss bombing or loft bombing, an electronic system takes over the plane just before reaching a target, forcing it into a climb so steep that the pilot nearly blacks out. The bomb is then released automatically at a certain angle, giving the pilot the maximum amount of time to fly away. In a similar technique, the plane passes directly over the target, and the bomb rises vertically before falling backward. In this way, the pilot remains safe, but the same can't be said for those on the ground. The U.S. Air Force is eager to get the E-7 Wedgetail airborne early warning and control aircraft because it represents a significant improvement over the Air Force's current airborne early warning aircraft, the E-3 Sentry. The E-7 Wedgetail is based on the Boeing 737-700 airliner, which is a more modern and fuel-efficient platform than the Boeing 707 airliner that the E-3 Sentry is based on. The E-7 Wedgetail also features a more advanced radar system and electronic communications suite than the E-3 Sentry. The E-7 Wedgetail radar system has a longer range and can track more targets simultaneously than the E-3 Sentry radar system. It can also detect and track smaller and slower targets, such as cruise missiles and drone. The U.S. Air Force is planning to purchase 26 E-7 Wedgetail aircraft, which will replace its aging fleet of E-3 Sentry aircraft. The first E-7 Wedgetail is scheduled to be delivered to the Air Force in 2027.
The sergeant that was with me said to me, anybody have radio experience? And I said, yes, I do. He said, well, get your butt down there and go back to the beach and get a radio. We got to stop this. The beach was just horrible. The smell, the stench was brutal. And I saw this kid with a radio on his back, and I said, there's my savior. There was an overhead burst took place. It hit him, and it cut his arm off, and it destroyed the damn radio. And I went down to him, and a medic was with me, and we tried to pull him up, but his arm had been severed completely, and the kid died. And it's still, right now, I see this kid This was the first one I'd ever seen ever getting killed. I don't know who he was from. I never knew what his name was or anything. But the medic and myself pulled him up. As we started to pull him up, another shell burst, and I caught mine in my left leg. And the medic also got hit in his arm. But we still managed to pull him up to the berm, and we hid under the berm. And that's where I spent the night, in the berm, okay? And that was it.
When the Navy set out to test the brand new AIM-7 Sparrow and Eagle missiles in 1956, it was supposed to be a routine exercise in which an unmanned Grumman F-6F Hellcat would fly towards the ocean and be shot down. But after the Hellcat turned towards densely populated Los Angeles and became unresponsive, the Navy had no choice but to call in the rival Air Force to prevent a deadly crash. The Air Force scrambled 2 F-89 Scorpions, but these aircraft only had unguided rockets, and the pilots had no gun sight with which to aim. The result was nothing short of catastrophic. The Scorpions fired a total of 208 rockets, and all of them missed the unmanned Hellcat. Instead, they fell to the ground, turning Antelope Valley and downtown Palmdale into a virtual war zone as shrapnel ripped through living rooms, oil fields caught fire, and a rocket fuel and explosives factory was nearly blown up. Luckily, there were no casualties, including the drone itself, which eventually fell harmlessly over an unpopulated area. As far as we can see, the anti-ship missile is one of the most interesting missiles for one particular reason. It does sea skimming. It means the missiles consist of flying as close as possible to the sea surface. So what's the point compared to a missile that only launches upwards? Well, there are several advantages, including it is more difficult for ships to detect sea-skimming missiles because of their late appearance due to the roundness of the Earth and also radar clutter from the sea. And once detected, it is more difficult for ships to defend themselves against sea skimmers because the apparent surface of the missile is smaller. This is where it gets interesting. The missile is able to assess the sea state by itself. It measures the wavelength of the sea and the peak-to-peak height, estimates the sea state, and deduces the flight altitude at the best trade-off between stealth and probability of failure. For instance, sea skimmers usually fly around 5 meters above the sea surface for a calm sea and around 20 meters above the sea surface for a rough sea.
Right now, the USS Bataan is on its way to the Persian Gulf. Thousands of Marines, backed by the United States' top fighter jet, along with warships and other aircraft, are slowly building up. This comes as Washington is wanting to try to deter Iran from harassing or taking ships in the strategic Strait of Hormuz. Now, that strait sees 20% of all oil traded pass through it.
The volume of commerce that flows through the Strait of Hormuz is critical to the world's economy. Our mission is to maintain the free flow of commerce. So assuring, reassuring presence and increasing that here in the Strait of Hormuz where we've seen these seizures occur.
For Iran, these ship seizures are part of a pattern of assaults attributed to the country since 2019. All this deployment has caught Iran's attention, with Iran's foreign minister trying to tell neighboring nations that they don't need foreigners to provide their security. And as diplomacy remains stalled, the tensions between the two nations will continue to fester.
Thank you. And now, Easy Company assaults the guns at Brecourt Manor on D-Day.
After a chaotic night of confused parachute landings in which many American paratroopers were dropped many miles from their intended landing zones, First Lieutenant Winters of the 506th Parachute Infantry Regiment, 101st Airborne Division, has spent the night trying to find comrades from his unit, Easy Company. It's June 6, 1944, D-Day. Linking up with men from Dog Company and the battalion headquarters staff, the heavily understrengthed 2nd Battalion has stopped to rest by the small village of Le Grand Chemin at 7 a.m. Winters is ordered to battalion headquarters. He is informed that Dog Company have found a German artillery battery in the grounds of nearby Brecourt Manor, and is simply told, "There's fire along that hedgerow there, take care of it." The importance of silencing the German artillery battery is paramount. The 4 105mm artillery pieces are firing directly on Utah Beach, just as the American 4th Infantry Division are attempting to push inland. Easy Company's commander, Lieutenant Maher, is still missing, along with everyone from his aircraft, and so command of the company and the execution of the assault will fall to Winters. He is not briefed with a specific battle plan or any intelligence on the size of the German force at Brecourt Manor. He orders his men to drop everything other than their weapons and ammunition. He proceeds to scout the German position alone and forms a plan of action. Winters decides a frontal assault over flat ground is risky, and instead decides that it would be best to assault the German position from the flank and secure each gun in turn. He divides his force of 23 paratroopers, mostly of Easy Company, into small groups with specific tasks to perform in the assault, and begins to move them into position. To cover their assault, Winters positions the first of his 2 machine guns, crewed by Privates Petty and Liebgott, in a hedgerow to the front left of the battery. He then deploys his second machine gun, crewed by Privates Plescher and Hendricks, in a hedgerow facing the first gun and adjacent to the MG42 nest. Further down the same hedgerow, Sergeants Lipton and Ranney have taken up position by some trees to bring the first gun under flanking fire. As Winters moves into position to begin the assault, he notices a German soldier moving along the trench and immediately fires twice, dropping the man. As gunfire begins to erupt all round, Winters sends Lieutenant Compton with Sergeants Malarkey and Garnier to flank the first gun and assault it with grenades. Under fire from multiple angles, the Germans at the MG42 nest and first gun do not spot Compton's flanking move, and Compton's assault team throw their grenades at the German position. Winters' assault team charges the position, aiming to reach it just as the grenades explode. As they charge into the trenches, Private Popeye Wynne is wounded. He apologizes profusely. "I'm sorry, I goofed, I'm sorry," he cries. The Germans who have not been killed or wounded by the hail of grenades and gunfire panic and start to run across the open field towards Brecourt Manor. Winters' team opens fire on the fleeing troops. Lorraine hits his target first time. Garnier misses, so Winters finishes the other 2 men off. Compton hits one directly in the head with a grenade. A German grenade lands amongst the men, right between the legs of Corporal Toy. Seeing this, Winters shouts at Toy to move, for Christ's sakes, move. He lunges forward as the grenade explodes. Luckily, he is uninjured. Winters' attention immediately turns to the prospect of a German counterattack. He begins to progress down the trench toward the second gun, and sees 2 German soldiers setting up an MG42 down the trench, and wounds them both with 2 shots from his N1 rifle. Due to the intensity of German machine gun fire coming from the hedgerow behind the battery, Winters' men are restricted to staying within the German trench network. He decides that he has to assault the second gun now, and with 5 men throws grenades and charges towards it. The gun crew who are not killed or captured flee. Having captured the second gun, Winters' men have burnt through much of their ammunition. Consequently, Winters brings forward his machine guns and sends a runner back to HQ for more men and ammunition due to how extended his position has become. The assault pauses, and around half an hour later, more ammunition and a few men from the 2nd Battalion arrive. Winters decides now is the right time to assault the third gun. In the assault, Private Hall from Able Company is killed, but the third gun is now in their possession and 6 prisoners are taken. Just as the third gun is taken, Captain Hester from Battalion HQ arrives with TNT, and Winters' men begin to use it to destroy the guns under their control. Hester also tells Winters that Lieutenant Spears of Dog Company and 5 men are on their way to support him. Whilst Winters holds position at the second gun, he finds German documents highlighting every German artillery and machine gun position in the entire Cotentin Peninsula. This information is promptly sent back to Battalion HQ, whilst Winters and his men set about destroying all the German equipment they can find. Spears arrives, and with his band from Dog Company, charges the 4th and final gun, aggressively climbing out of the trench under fire to move faster across the open ground. A man from Dog Company is wounded, and another from Fox Company is killed by machine gun fire as he attempts to hurl a grenade at the German position. The Germans at the final gun flee, but leave a live grenade. Spotting it, Spears kicks it down into the mud just before it explodes. Having put all 4 guns out of action, Winters decides to withdraw due to the volume of German machine gun fire they are now receiving. He instructs his machine guns to fall back first, followed by the riflemen. By the time Winters eventually leaves the battlefield, the time is 11:30. Having only 12 men against what turned out to be a force of 50 Germans, Easy Company have eliminated a German artillery battery firing directly on Utah Beach and the No. 2 causeway beyond it. By destroying the artillery battery at Brecourt Manor, Easy Company have undoubtedly saved the lives of many of the men coming ashore from Utah Beach that day. Despite a great deal of personal praise for his leadership, Winters would later say, "Our success, however, was due more to our training and the unflinching courage of Easy Company than to my personal leadership."
And that was Easy Company assaults the guns at Brecourt Manor on D-Day. Back in a minute. Thank you. And now, a new book called The 33 Strategies of War by Robert Greene.
Preface. We live in a culture that promotes democratic values of being fair to one and all, the importance of fitting into a group, and knowing how to cooperate with other people. We are taught early on in life that those who are outwardly combative and aggressive pay a social price: unpopularity and isolation. These values of harmony and cooperation are perpetuated in subtle and not so subtle ways. Through books on how to be successful in life, through the pleasant, peaceful exteriors that those who have gotten ahead in the world present to the public, through notions of correctness that saturate the public space. The problem for us is that we are trained and prepared for peace, and we are not at all prepared for what confronts us in the real world: war. This war exists on several levels. Most obviously, we have our rivals on the other side. The world has become increasingly competitive and nasty. In politics, business, even the arts, we face opponents who will do almost anything to gain an edge. More troubling and complex, however, are the battles we face with those who are supposedly on our side. There are those who outwardly play the team game, who act very friendly and agreeable, but who sabotage us behind the scenes, use the group to promote their own agenda. Others, more difficult to spot, play subtle games of passive aggression, offering help that never comes, instilling guilt as a secret weapon. On the surface, everything seems peaceful enough, but just below it, it is every man and woman for him or herself. This dynamic infecting even families and relationships. The culture may deny this reality and promote a gentler picture, but we know it and feel it in our battle scars. It is not that we and our colleagues are ignoble creatures who fail to live up to ideals of peace and selflessness, but that we cannot help the way we are. We have aggressive impulses that are impossible to ignore or repress. In the past, individuals could expect a group, the state, an extended family, a company, to take care of them. But this is no longer the case. And in this uncaring world, we have to think first and foremost of ourselves and our interests. What we need are not impossible and inhuman ideals of peace and cooperation to live up to, and the confusion that brings us, but rather practical knowledge on how to deal with conflict and the daily battles we face. And this knowledge is not about how to be more forceful in getting what we want or defending ourselves, but rather how to be more rational and strategic when it comes to conflict, channeling our aggressive impulses instead of denying or repressing them. If there is an ideal to aim for, it should be that of the strategic warrior, the man or woman who manages difficult situations and people through deft and intelligent maneuver. Many psychologists and sociologists have argued that it is through conflict that problems are often solved and real differences reconciled. Our successes and failures in life can be traced to how well or how badly we deal with the inevitable conflicts that confront us in society. The common ways that people deal with them, trying to avoid all conflict, getting emotional and lashing out, turning sly and manipulative, are all counterproductive in the long run because they are not under conscious and rational control and often make the situation worse. Strategic warriors operate much differently. They think ahead toward their long-term goals, decide which fights to avoid and which are inevitable, know how to control and channel their emotions. When forced to fight, they do so with indirection and subtle maneuver, making their manipulations hard to trace. In this way, they can maintain the peaceful exterior so cherished in these political times. This ideal of fighting rationally comes to us from organized warfare, where the art of strategy was invented and refined. In the beginning, war was not at all strategic. Battles between tribes were fought in a brutal manner, a kind of ritual of violence in which individuals could display their heroism. But as tribes expanded and evolved into states, it became all too apparent that war had too many hidden costs, that waging it blindly often led to exhaustion and self-destruction, even for the victor. Somehow, wars had to be fought more rationally. The word strategy comes from the ancient Greek word strategos, meaning literally the leader of the army. Strategy in this sense was the art of generalship, of commanding the entire war effort, deciding what formations to deploy, what terrain to fight on, what maneuvers to use to gain an edge. And as this knowledge progressed, military leaders discovered that the more they thought and planned ahead, the more possibilities they had for success. Novel strategies could allow them to defeat much larger armies, as Alexander the Great did in his victories over the Persians. In facing savvy opponents who were also using strategy, there developed an upward pressure. To gain an advantage, a general had to be even more strategic, more indirect and clever than the other side. Over time, the arts of generalship became steadily more sophisticated as more strategies were invented. Although the word strategy itself is Greek in origin, the concept appears in all cultures, in all periods. Solid principles on how to deal with the inevitable accidents of war, how to craft the ultimate plan, how to best organize the army, all of this can be found in war manuals from ancient China to modern Europe. The counterattack, the flanking or enveloping maneuver, and the arts of deception are common to the armies of Genghis Khan, Napoleon, and the Zulu king Shaka. As a whole, these principles and strategies indicate a kind of universal military wisdom, a set of adaptable patterns that can increase the chances for victory. Perhaps the greatest strategist of all was Sun Tzu, author of the ancient Chinese classic, The Art of War. In his book, written probably in the 4th century BC, can be found traces of almost all the strategic patterns and principles later developed over the course of centuries. But what connects them, in fact what constitutes the art of war itself in Sun Tzu's eyes, is the ideal of winning without bloodshed. By playing on the psychological weaknesses of the opponent, by maneuvering him into precarious positions, by inducing feelings of frustration and confusion, a strategist can get the other side to break down mentally before surrendering physically. In this way, victory can be had at a much lower cost. And the state that wins wars with few lives lost and resources squandered is the state that can thrive over greater periods of time. Certainly most wars are not waged so rationally, but those campaigns in history that have followed this principle, Scipio Africanus in Spain, Napoleon at Ulm, T.E. Lawrence in the desert campaigns of World War I, stand out above the rest and serve as the ideal. War is not some separate realm divorced from the rest of society. It is an eminently human arena, full of the best and the worst of our nature. War also reflects trends in society. The evolution toward more unconventional, dirtier strategies, guerrilla warfare, terrorism, mirrors a similar evolution in society, where almost anything goes. The strategies that succeed in war, whether conventional or unconventional, are based on timeless psychology, and great military failures have much to teach us about human stupidity and the limits of force in any arena. The strategic ideal in war Being supremely rational and emotionally balanced, striving to win with minimum bloodshed and loss of resources, has infinite application and relevance to our daily battles. Inculcated with the values of our times, many will argue that organized war is inherently barbaric, a relic of man's violent past and something to be overcome for good. To promote the arts of warfare in a social setting, they will say, is to stand in the way of progress and to encourage conflict and dissension. Isn't there enough of that in the world? This argument is very seductive, but not at all reasonable. There will always be those in society and in the world at large who are more aggressive than we are, who find ways to get what they want by hook or by crook. We must be vigilant and must know how to defend ourselves against such types. Civilized values are not furthered if we are forced to surrender to those who are crafty and strong. In fact, being pacifists in the face of such wolves is the source of endless tragedy. Mahatma Gandhi, who elevated nonviolence into a great weapon for social change, had one simple goal later on in his life: to rid India of the British overlords who had crippled it for so many centuries.
And that was the opening part of, and the opening credits of, the 33 Strategies of War by Robert Greene. Back in a minute. Thank you. And now, former President Donald Trump awards the Medal of Honor to Sergeant Matthew Williams.
Ladies and gentlemen, the President of the United States, accompanied by Medal of Honor recipient, Master Sergeant Matthew O. Williams, United States Army.
Ladies and gentlemen, please join me as we mark this occasion in a word of prayer. Almighty God, the author of liberty and the champion of the oppressed, hear our prayer. You protect the righteous and bring justice to the foe. We gather today to honor the spirit of a warrior who through adversity remained focused on the lives of his team and what needed to be done. He put the safety of others above his own, ran toward danger, and met it face to face. We thank you for Master Sergeant Matthew Williams, an exemplar of heroism, whose heart, soul, and very life were tested in battle, producing the stronger man we honor today. His character, courage, and calm were revealed in a moment, and his example inspires us all. God bless Matthew, his loving and devoted wife Kate, their son Nolan, his extended family, and his comrades in arms here today. Lord, let Matthew's life, legacy, and this very medal that is placed around his neck be a reminder for us all to face our fears and find our own moments to shine. May the lamp of liberty continue to burn bright on the United States of America, the Army, and may we be a beacon of hope and peace in our world. In your holy and righteous name I pray. Amen.
Thank you very much, Chaplain. Appreciate that. Please sit down. Well, this afternoon, it's my privilege to present our nation's highest and most revered military distinction. It's called the Congressional Medal of Honor. Nothing like it. Please join me in welcoming today's extraordinary recipient, Master Sergeant Matthew Williams. Thank you very much. We're delighted to have with us the Secretary of Defense, Mark Esper. Thank you, Mark. And great job to you and to everybody, and General Milley for the incredible act you performed 7 days ago with al-Baghdadi. He was hit hard the way he should have been, and I just want to say, for all of our military, we're very proud of you. That was something very special. The whole world is proud of you, frankly, so thank you very much. Thank you, Mark. Great job. Also with us is Deputy Secretary of Veterans Affairs, Jim Byrne. Thank you. Thank you, Jim. Secretary of the Army, Ryan McCarthy. Thank you. Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Mark Milley. Thank you, General. Great job. Incredible job. Army Chief of Staff, James McConneville, and Sergeant Major of the Army, Michael Grunston. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for being here. Also, thank you to some very special warriors, a little different kind of war maybe, but they are warriors. Senators John Cornyn, Ted Cruz, and Tom Tillis. Thank you very much, fellas. Thank you. Along with Representative Richard Hudson for being here. We have a few other great politicians here, but we won't bother, because we want to get on with this one. This is a very special thing. It's such a great honor. Joining Matt for this special ceremony is his wife, Kate, his father, Michael, his mother, Janet, brother Cody, and his sister, Amy. Please stand up, please. Thank you. Great family. Each of you has strengthened our nation through your steadfast love and support, and we want to just thank you, a very, very special family. We're also honored to be in the presence of 8 previous Congressional Medal of Honor winners. Recipients are here, and I thought maybe we should, what do you think? We should introduce them. I think so, right? Come on, let's do that. William Swenson. William, thank you very much, William. Ronald Shura. Thank you. Thank you, Ronald. Thank you. Walter Marham. Hi, Walter. Robert Foley. Thank you, Robert. Thank you, Robert. Brian Thacker. Thank you very much. Florent Groberg. Thank you, Florent. David Belavia. David. I heard you maybe were going to be running for office, but someday I know, huh? I'll tell you. Boy, I'll tell you what. Here's my vote. I have a brave politician for a change, right? That's great. Nice to see you, David. Thank you very much. And Salvatore Ginta. Thank you, Salvatore. Thank you very much. Thank you. Matt Williams grew up in the small town of Birney, Texas. Very small town. He met Kate for the first time in elementary school. In college, he planned to pursue a career in law enforcement, but after 9/11, Matt decided his place was on the front lines of the war on terror. He wanted to be the best of the best. He worked so hard at it. So after graduation, he enlisted in the Army to become a Green Beret. Matt finished his Special Forces training in August 2007 and deployed to Afghanistan by October. On April 6, 2008, he joined dozens of American Special Forces and Afghan commandos on a mission to take down a terrorist leader in a remote mountain village. It sounded simple, not simple. On that cold spring morning, the soldiers arrived in helicopters and jumped 10 feet from their Chinooks into the rocky and freezing terrain of Shock Valley. When the first Americans reached the edge of the valley, at the base of a 100-foot mountain, a handful of special forces scouted ahead. The lead group was 60 feet up the slope when roughly 200 insurgents savagely attacked, and it was a big surprise. Very unwelcome surprise, I might add. The terrorists filled the valley with a hail of bullets and explosions. Matt soon received word that the soldiers on the mountain were pinned down and suffering from mounting casualties. He organized the Afghan infantry under his command, and he led a bold counter-assault to stop the enemy advance. As machine gun fire rained down from above, Matt and his fellow American soldiers, Scott Ford and Ronald Scherer, charged up the mountain. Once they reached their trapped comrades, Matt realized that several of them were too gravely wounded to be quickly evacuated. He ran down the mountain to get support and then climbed back up with bullets spraying all around. Not a good place to be. Again and again, Matt exchanged fire with the enemy and rescued his fellow soldiers. He guided his injured team sergeant, Scott Ford, down the mountain to safety. When Matt noticed two combatants moving toward a group of the badly wounded, he immediately engaged the enemy fighters and killed them both. But Matt was not done yet. In order to rejoin the battle on the mountain, he and Sergeant Seth Howard scaled a sheer cliff, completely exposed to attack. Matt quickly re-engaged the adversary and shielded the injured from falling rubble as American warplanes bombed insurgent positions above and rocked the mountain from top to bottom. He then helped evacuate the wounded down a very, very steep cliff. As the terrorists continued to try to overrun their position, Matt raced back into battle. He fought for several more hours, valiantly protecting the wounded and putting his own life in great peril to save his comrades. Matt's incredible heroism helped ensure that not a single American soldier died in the Battle of Shock Valley. His ground commander later wrote, "I've never seen a troop so poised, focused, and capable during a fight. And Matt is, without question and without reservation, one of the bravest soldiers and people I've ever met." But Matt wants all Americans to know that he was not alone in his heroism that day. Joining us this afternoon are other heroes of Shock Valley. Please rise when I read your name. Lieutenant Colonel Kyle Walton. Thank you. Thank you. Master Sergeant Scott Ford. Thank you, Scott. And Louis Morales. Thank you very much. Thank you, Louis. Carl Wurzbach. Where's Carl? Thank you, Carl. Sergeants, First Class Seth Howard, Dave Sanders, John Walden, Dylan Bear, and Ryan Wallen. Thank you, fellas. Thank you, fellas. And very importantly, as you know, better than anyone, Afghan translators, Baruz Muhammad and Zia Grafori. How was that, okay? Not bad? Good. He said it was okay. He said it was okay. Thank you both very much. Fantastic job. Fantastic job. Thank you. I assume you all agree with this choice, right? Okay, your last chance, huh? They all agree. Thank you very much. I agree too. We all do. Staff Sergeant Ronald Scherer, who was with us and privileged to be here. And we had not so long ago, a great ceremony with the Medal of Honor, and that was really amazing that you're both here together. To each and every one of you, I want to thank you, and I want to thank the fearless defense and what you've done for our country. It's incredible, your valor, your bravery, your strength, your heart, your soul. It's incredible what you've done. The Battle of Shock Valley is a testament to the overwhelming strength, lethal skill, and unstoppable might of the United States Army, Special Forces, and all of our military. The enemy that really held a high ground, superior numbers, and element of surprise. They had it all going. Everything they're not supposed to have, they had. But they had one major disadvantage. They were facing the toughest, strongest, and best trained soldiers anywhere in the world. We showed that a few days ago. These guys didn't know what the hell hit them. No adversary on earth stands a chance against the American Green Berets. A few years after that first perilous deployment, Matt married Kate. Did you make a good decision, Kate, in allowing this to happen, right? We definitely have a brave guy. I can't speak for the rest, okay? He's a brave guy, and he's a great guy. So good luck. That's nice. Today, they have a young son, Nolan, who will turn 3 next week. It's beautiful. In the years to come, Nolan will learn that his father stands among the ranks of our nation's greatest heroes. For more than a decade, Matt has stared down our enemies, fought back the forces of terror, and exemplified the virtue and gallantry of the American warrior. He has completed 5 tours in Afghanistan, a deployment in Africa, and he continues to serve our country on active duty today. That's something to have the Congressional Medal of Honor and be serving in active duty. It's very rare. Matt, we salute your unyielding service, your unbreakable resolve, and your untiring devotion to our great nation and the nation that we all love. Your spirit keeps our flag waving high, our family safe at home, and our hearts beating with American pride. On behalf of the entire nation, our great USA, our incredible United States of America, we are forever grateful for your life of service and your outstanding courage. It's now my privilege to present Master Sergeant Matthew Williams with the Congressional Medal of Honor. And I would like to ask the military aide to come forward and please read the citation. Thank you.
The President of the United States of America has awarded the Congressional Medal of Honor to Sergeant Matthew O. Williams, United States Army. Sergeant Williams distinguished himself by acts of gallantry and intrepidity above and beyond the call of duty on April 6, 2008, while serving as a weapons sergeant, Special Forces Operational Detachment Alpha 336, Special Operations Task Force 33, in support of Operation Enduring Freedom. Sergeant Williams' actions are in keeping with the finest traditions of military service and reflect great credit upon himself, Combined Joint Special Operations Task Force Afghanistan, Special Operations Command Central, and United States Army.
Well, for some reason, we have lost the audio. The former president is shaking his hand. There we go. And that was former President Donald Trump presenting the Congressional Medal of Honor. Back in a minute. Thank you. This is Ron, your host, the only true conservative in the United States today, bidding adios to all the butchers, bakers, and candlestick makers out there, and reminding you to be honest, smart, and beautiful, and remember that the left has no authority, no power, and they can't win.